the constriction of democratic space, and what we are seeing, what we are thinking is fascism already in this country, is troubling all of us, and it is time that we got together and thought of, reversing the situation. And in that context, I want to say that we can't think of constrained space and fascism in isolation. It is a stage of capitalist development. And I would like to state that capitalism is not a static situation. It's not a static system. It goes on changing. And as it develops, it has to converge into monopoly capitalism. It has to converge into imperialist setup, and it has to converge into finance capital. And the finance capital in its most, what should I say, cruel form, leads to the fascistic tendencies that we are very scared of today, and which was noticed at the time of Second World War, and the whole Second World War was there. But this analysis of Lenin should be kept in mind, that when we want to reverse the situation, we have to essentially look at the production structure of this country. And in that context, I would like to talk about the situation of agricultural workforce. I would not like to call them all farmers. The situation of agricultural workforce and the potential of agricultural workforce to fight the present production structure and move towards a new alternative. And I think unless we look at the production structure and think of an alternative production structure, which allows equality, which allows equal opportunity, and which gives dignified employment to the citizens, we can't just talk of superstructure and communal conflicts and the character of state. So, having said that, that is my position. I would come down to what the peasant crisis is about. I think what the farmers of India did in the last, is there a problem? I'm audible, no? Yeah. I think the farmers' protest in India has set a precedence in the world. It was a remarkable protest that was staged by the farmers, and true that some of them were having sufficient resources for the protest to continue for a year, but lot of people joined. Lot of people without resources joined, and lot of people joined with hope that this is a real fight with corporate. This is the fight of Indian people against corporate hijacking Indian agriculture. And we must join this fight because our own interests are linked to this fight. And the peaceful manner, the non-violent attitude of the farmers, their resilience, and their insistence that they want what is promised to them in the Constitution, reminded us of our freedom struggle, reminded us of what Gandhi taught us. And I'm very happy and I'm very proud that the workforce, not just agriculture, even industrial workforce joined them, that the working people of this country have internalized the fact that if they have to fight, they have to fight with their collective strength and not necessarily resort to violence, have patience, have resilience, and ultimately have hope that they will be able to defeat the enemy. And their victory, my salute to them. Now, I would like also to say as to what agrarian crisis means in this country, because still about 49% of the total workforce is dependent on agriculture on its livelihood. And unfortunately, the land which is available for farming is very rapidly moving away from farm operations to non-farm usage, very rapidly. So now I think in I have mentioned this before, the statistics, but I need to mention it again, that in 1992, the operable private operable farmland in India was 125 million hectares. And in 2017-18, it has reduced to just 84 million hectares. It's a very big decline in the land available for agriculture to this country, and it threatens the macro level food security also. Whereas the land is rapidly moving away, and whereas the surplus produced has already moved away from agriculture, the workforce is unable to move away from agriculture and go to non-agricultural sector, because the manufacturing sector in India does not promise employment to more than 12 to 15% of the workforce. And when the agricultural workforce gets really compressed, when there is no land and nothing to do, they move, they flow into the service sector, which is a push out effect. And when they move into the service sector, there is no productive or dignified employment available for them, which we have seen at the time of lockdown, when all these informal workers from big towns moved back to their villages and walked hundreds and thousands of kilometers individually and collectively. So the main point that I want to insist is that the extent of workforce which is dependent on agriculture, we don't have that much land to give them productive employment. And the land which is available is again it is distributed in a very skewed manner. So in the rural households, about 40% households do not have any farmland. They just have house land. And next 30% of the households have farmland where the average size of the farm is only 0.2 hectares. After that, some 10%, 0.7 hectares, 1.3 hectares, but only 6% of the total rural households have farmland which is bigger than 2 hectares of land. And 2 hectares is the minimum size which is required, which excludes the marginal and small farmers, for a family of 5 to be able to get viable income from land, to be able to survive, to educate their children and live in a sort of dignified manner. So only 6% of rural households have access to land. And 94% of rural households do not have access to sufficient land to be able to have dignified, productive employment opportunity. And therefore, if we want to really resolve the agrarian crisis, we have to think of land-labor relations. And we have to think of employment outside the agriculture farm sector. And when we think of employment outside the farm sector, then we are necessarily talking about restructuring the manufacturing sector. We are necessarily talking about restructuring the service sector. And we are necessarily talking about what we want to produce and for whom. So basically, it has to be a big transition if we really want that the agrarian workforce gets productive and dignified livelihood. And the studies that we have done, we have come to this inference, and we are very convinced about it, that only way this can be done is to have a nationwide, very strong cooperative movement. Nationwide, very strong cooperative movement in farm sector, outside the farm sector, to confront the corporates, to confront the multinationals, to save this country from imperialist designs, to have a production structure where, democracy does not mean just electoral democracy where money plays such a big game. To have a production structure where democracy means that people really do have a chance to talk and express what they want from this country. And I'm sure that this is a permanent solution for fighting fascism in the long run. Thank you. I think I have covered my time allotted to me. If there is more time, I can elaborate a little more.
Yes, I think you can elaborate for another 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Very good. So I was talking about cooperative movement, and I have last time when, as you mentioned, I talked to you, we have studied the collective farming that the women in Kerala are doing. And there is this Kudumbashri mission in Kerala, where women's they don't call it self-help groups, they call it neighborhood groups. And women's neighborhood groups are, of course, they are given incentive to do productive activities, and they are also allied to the local self-governments, which is panchayats. And the panchayat's responsibility also comes to them. So these and there are about 4 million women in Kudumbashri mission who are organized into neighborhood groups and are involved in various productive activities. Out of these, about more than 2 lakh women are into agriculture, and they do collective farming. So Kerala has a special situation in agriculture. If people from Kerala are here, they know that young people do not want to be associated with farming activities. So there is shortage of labor, and there is land which is fallow land where nobody is there to cultivate it. So these women have converted large section of fallow land into green fields. And they have done fantastic work. We have been there for 4 or 5 years continuously. We've gone to villages, and the panchayat level organizers, men, they all, are wonderstruck that how these women are able to convert the fallow land into a fertile land and produce paddy and take care of food security at local level. But more than that, more than what they have done economically and what they have earned economically, what I saw and which really surprised me was the worldview which has changed of the women who have come into collectives. For a woman, a home is her world, and this has really changed 180 degrees. Now, world is her home. So at the time of floods, at the time of corona, at the time of any calamity in Kerala, the Kudumbashri women have played wonderful role. And they have extended their worldview, and they have acquired confidence to politically intervene in the planning process at panchayat level, and hopefully it will extend to district and then state level, where women coming from landless households, women coming from very small farmer households have acquired enough confidence, enough strength, and they've got enough exposure to be able to meaningfully participate into what is to be produced, how it is to be produced, to whom it is to be given, and not just agriculture. Then they transcend from here to the entire political economy, and I have great hopes that the working people and working women can play a very important role in fighting this capitalist production structure, which essentially would lead to fascism. So fighting against fascism requires the working people to get aware of their strength and their collectivity. Thank you.